There is a button on the side of that $25 radio you just bought that acts as a summon. You press it and you think you are calling for help. You think you are reaching out to the world to see if anyone is still alive. But in a true kinetic environment, when the rule of law has dissolved and the spectrum is being watched, that button does not send a message. It paints a target on your chest. In the last 10 years of conflict monitoring, we have seen a definitive shift. The person who talks dies. The person who listens survives. Today, we are not talking about getting your ham license to chat about the weather. We are talking about turning a cheap piece of plastic into the most powerful passive sensor in your arsenal, without ever leaking a single watt of energy that could give away your position. This is Survival Curriculum. I'm Tom. If you are new here, we don't do unboxing videos and we don't do gear reviews. We do threat modelling. We take the tools you have and apply the physics of actual disaster scenarios to them. Today is about radio silence. Specifically, how to use a Baofeng UV5R or similar handheld as a receive-only intelligence gathering tool. We are going to cover the physics of triangulation, the discipline of light and sound, and the specific programming you need to strip the transmit capability out of your hands before panic sets in. If you want to survive the initial cull of the loud and the careless, you need to secure your spot in this briefing right now. Let's get to work. Picture the timeline. It is day 4 of a grid-down occupation. The suburbs are dark. The power failed on Tuesday. By Thursday, the local cell towers had drained their backup batteries. The silence is heavy. In a second-story bedroom, a man named Miller feels the crushing weight of isolation. He has a Baofeng UV5R he bought on Amazon 3 years ago. He remembers the prepper blogs said this was his lifeline. He turns it on. The static hisses. He presses the PTT button on the side and speaks into the mic. Is anyone out there? This is Miller at the corner of Oak and 4th. 3 miles away, inside a retrofitted van idling on a hill, a waterfall display on a laptop spikes red. A jagged line cuts through the noise floor. The operator doesn't care what Miller is saying. He just looks at the vector line pointing straight to the suburb. He radios the sweep team. Contact, Sector 4, high confidence. Miller just turned on a lighthouse in a blackout. Miller's mistake was treating a radio like a telephone. This is the default failure mode for 90% of the population. We are trained by Hollywood and cellular networks to believe that communication is private and point-to-point. When you use a cell phone, a massive infrastructure manages the signal power and routes it specifically to a tower. When you use a radio, you are vomiting raw electromagnetic energy in a sphere around you. It goes through walls, over trees, and hits every receiver within line of sight. Miller thought he was asking for help. In reality, he was shouting his exact grid coordinates to anyone with a directional antenna. The panic of isolation overrides the logic of security. He wanted comfort, but he traded his invisibility for it. In a survival scenario, comfort is usually a fatal commodity. Let's look at the physics. A Baofeng puts out about 5 to 8 watts on high power. In the radio frequency spectrum, 5 watts is screaming. Even on flat terrain, that signal can travel 3 to 5 miles easily. If you are on a hill, or the receiving station has a good antenna, you are visible for 10, maybe 20 miles. Direction finding, or DFing, does not require military satellites. It requires 2 guys with cheap Yagi antennas, those are the ones that look like TV aerials, and a map. If receiver A gets a bearing of 090 degrees, and receiver B gets a bearing of 180 degrees, where those lines cross on the map is your house. It is simple geometry. You do not need to be transmitting for long. A simple "hello" is enough to get a lock. This is why the first rule of radio survival is the transmit button does not exist. Now, add the complication of modern tech. In a standard collapse scenario, you might just be worried about nosy neighbours. But in a scenario involving organised hostile forces, cartels, occupying units, or rogue military elements, the threat evolves. They use software-defined radios, SDR. These are devices that monitor huge chunks of the radio spectrum simultaneously. They don't scan one channel at a time, they watch the whole band like a hawk watches a field. When you key up, you appear as a bright waterfall spike on their screen instantly. They can automate this. Drones equipped with SDRs can fly grid patterns over a city, logging every single transmission source, triangulating them via GPS, and flagging them for ground teams. Against this tech, your 5-watt Baofeng is not a communication tool. It is a tracking beacon that you voluntarily carry in your pocket. Fast forward to week 2. The threat isn't just triangulation anymore, it's physical patrols. You are hiding in a crawl space or an attic. You have learned your lesson about transmitting, so you are just listening. You want to know if the convoy has passed. You turn the volume knob just a fraction. Suddenly, the squelch breaks. A blast of white noise and a garbled voice shouts at full volume into the silent room. Move to phase line blue! It sounds like a gunshot in the quiet house. Simultaneously, the backlight on the radio flares up, a bright orange-green glow that illuminates your face and the window behind you. Outside, a looter on the street sees the flash of light. A dog barks. You didn't transmit, but you just gave yourself away just as effectively as if you'd fired a flare gun. This is the scanner guy failure mode. People buy radios and leave them on factory settings. Factory settings are designed for convenience, not stealth. They beep when you press a button, the screen lights up when a signal is received, the audio blows out the speaker because you didn't check the gain. In a hostile environment, your senses are heightened, but so are the enemy's. Light discipline and noise discipline are absolute. A radio that lights up every time the weather service broadcasts a tone is a strobe light in a dark room. Most people realise this only after the first close call, when they are frantically trying to smother the device under a blanket while their heart hammers against their ribs. By then, the curiosity of the patrol outside is already piqued. Here is how you fix this immediately. First, the audio. Never, ever use the built-in speaker in a tactical situation. You need an earpiece. The acoustic tube style, the Secret Service look, is best because it doesn't block your ambient hearing completely, but a simple earbud works. It keeps the audio inside your head. Second, the programming. Go into the menu. Menu 8 on a UV5R is beep. Turn it off. You do not want the radio chirping every time you change a channel. Next, look at the backlight settings, usually menu 29, 30 and 31. Set them to off, or the shortest possible duration. But don't trust the software. Take a piece of electrical tape or gaffer tape and cover the transmission LED on the top of the radio. That little light turns red when you transmit and green when you receive. In a pitch black hide site, that green LED is bright enough to be seen through a window. Kill the light, kill the noise. The complication here involves night vision devices, NVDs. We aren't just hiding from naked eyes anymore. Digital night vision is cheap now. You can buy it at Walmart. Generation 3 analog tubes are proliferating among criminal gangs and militias. If you have your radio's backlight on, even if it looks dim to you, under night vision, it looks like you are holding a flare. Even the infrared signature of the heat generated by the battery or the screen can be detected if the observer is close enough and using thermal. But the primary threat is light leakage. If you are monitoring comms at night, You must be under a heavy blanket or inside a closet. The faint glow of an LCD screen leaking around the edges of your tape job can illuminate your face in the near-infrared spectrum, making you glow like a ghost to anyone watching with NODs, night optical devices. Treat the radio like a burning match. Let's escalate the scenario. You are mobile now. You have to move from your compromised house to a fallback location. You are crawling through a drainage ditch, radio in your chest rig or pocket. You stumble. You slide down a muddy embankment and slam into the concrete wall. You gasp for air, cursing in pain. "Damn it, my ankle!" you wheeze. Suddenly, you hear a voice in your earpiece. "Contact. Someone just keyed up on the primary channel. Sounded like they're hurt." Your blood freezes. You didn't press the button. You didn't touch the radio. But the radio heard you. You left the Vox, voice-operated exchange, feature on. Or, in your fall, the tight pouch squeezed the PTT button on the side. You just broadcast your injury and your panic to the very people you are hiding from. This is the hands-free fallacy. On construction sites or in paintball games, Vox is convenient. It opens the mic when it detects noise. In a survival situation, Vox is a suicide switch. A cough, a door slamming, a dog barking, or even heavy breathing can trigger the transmitter. Most factory reset Baofangs have Vox set to a sensitive level by default. The other failure point is the death grip. When human beings are terrified, we clinch our hands. If you are holding the radio, you will squeeze the PTT button without realizing it. If the radio is in a pouch that is too tight, running or bending over can compress the button. You create an open mic situation. You are broadcasting your location and your status continuously until the battery dies or someone finds you. Here is the fix. First, software. Go to menu 4 on the UV5R. This is Vox. Turn it to off. Check it every time you turn the radio on. But software can fail or be reset. We need a hardware solution. If you are truly committed to a receive-only doctrine, you need to physically disable the PTT. Some operators use a hard plastic cover or a cut-down bottle cap taped over the button so it cannot be pressed accidentally. Others, who are dedicated to the grey man scanner life, will actually open the radio case and put a piece of tape between the PTT contact and the button, physically breaking the circuit. You can reverse it later if you have to, but in the heat of the moment, you want it impossible to transmit. If you need to keep the capability, buy a rigid Kydex holster that covers the buttons, preventing pouch squeeze from keying the mic. The specific threat here involves carrier detection. Sophisticated monitoring equipment doesn't just listen for voice, it listens for the carrier wave, the blank silence that is transmitted when the button is held down but nobody is speaking. Even if you don't say a word, pressing that PTT broadcasts a strong, unmodulated signal. To an automated direction finder, a carrier wave is easier to track than a jagged voice pattern because it is constant power. If you have a stuck mic situation while moving through a hostile zone, you are literally walking around with a homing beacon active. The enemy doesn't need to hear your voice to kill you. They just need to see the signal strength increasing as they get closer. Physical disabling of the transmit button is the only 100% guarantee against the death grip. Let's stabilize the situation. You are secure, you are quiet, you have disabled the PTT. Now, what are you listening to? It is day 10. The initial riots have calmed down into organized territorial control. You are sitting in your basement, scanning through the frequencies. Static. 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 You feel blind. You know things are happening outside, you can hear the distant rumble of trucks, but your radio is silent. Why? Because you are scanning the default ham bands. You are listening for other preppers on 146.520. But the preppers are either dead or smart enough to be radio silent. The people who are talking are the ones running the show. The local utility crews trying to restore power to the warlord's compound. The private security contractors patrolling the perimeter. And the public works department using ancient analog repeaters. You are missing the intel because you are listening to the wrong movie. The amateur radio operator's bias is to listen to other amateurs. This is a mistake in a collapse. In a real emergency, ham operators go to ground. The most valuable intelligence comes from unaware users, organisations that use radios as a daily utility and haven't switched to encryption. This includes school bus depots, often used for mass transport in evacuations, tow truck dispatchers, who see every blocked road, and analogue public safety channels in rural areas. If you wait until the disaster to find these frequencies, you are too late. You cannot search for them efficiently when the airwaves are dead. You need to have them programmed in banks before the lights go out. Miller, our guy from the beginning, is scanning for CQCQ calls while a convoy of water trucks is coordinating their route on a frequency he skipped. Here is your programming curriculum. Do not do this by hand. Get the programming cable and use Chirp software. You need to build banks or groups of channels. Bank 1, Local Emergency. This is NOAA weather, vital for fallout patterns or storm tracks, and the specific local interoperability channels used by fire EMS if they are analog. Bank 2, the Utilities. Program the frequencies for your local power company, waterworks, and transportation department. These guys are the first to know about infrastructure status. Bank 3, the business band .star frequencies. These are the frequencies used by Walmart, private security, and construction crews. In a looting scenario, hearing the security team at the local mall calling for backup tells you exactly where the riot line is. Bank 4, FRS GMRS. These are the blister pack walkie-talkies. This is where the mobs, the looters, and the desperate families will be. Listening here gives you the pulse of the street. Program them all, label them clearly. The complication is the digital wall. You need to understand what you cannot hear. In most major cities, police and military use P25 Phase 2 digital encryption. Your $25 analog Baofeng cannot decode this. You will just hear a robotic buzzing sound, like a chainsaw. Do not ignore the chainsaw noise. That noise is data. If you hear a spike in digital traffic on a specific frequency, it means something is happening, even if you can't understand the words. It is traffic analysis. If the police channel goes from silent to constant buzzing, a raid is in progress. If the encrypted channel used by the National Guard suddenly goes dead, they might have pulled out. You are using the volume of noise as a barometer for danger. Don't filter out the digital noise completely. Learn to recognise the sound of encrypted authority. Let's move to the endgame, the fox hunt. You are surviving. You are passive. But you need to know if the threat is moving toward you. You tune into a local repeater, a machine on a mountain that rebroadcasts signals. You hear a voice, crystal clear. Checkpoint Alpha is clear, sending transport south. The voice sounds like he is next to you, but he isn't. He is hitting the repeater from 10 miles north. Then you hear a second voice, crackly, filled with static. Copy that, Alpha. We are moving. That second guy? He is on the fringe. He is far away, or he is in a valley. You are now building a 3D map of the battlefield in your head, based purely on signal quality. The clear voice is the danger. The static voice is the buffer. You are using the radio not just to hear words, but to measure distance. The novice hears a clear signal and assumes the threat is close. Or they hear a weak signal and assume the threat is far. This is dangerous because of the repeater trap. If someone is talking through a repeater, their signal strength output from the repeater is always constant. You are listening to the machine, not the man. You cannot judge distance based on the volume of a repeater output. You have to listen to the input quality, the subtle static, the picket fencing, that choppy sound when someone is driving, or the background audio. If you don't understand the difference between simplex, direct radio to radio, and duplex, repeater operations, you will misjudge the location of a hostile force by 20 miles. That is a margin of error that gets your supply cache raided. To exploit this, you need to program the input frequencies. A repeater listens on one frequency, input, and talks on another, output. Usually, you only listen to the output. But if you program the input frequency into your radio as a receive-only channel, you can listen for the raw signal of the person talking. If you can hear the person on the input frequency, they are close, within 3 to 5 miles of you. If you can only hear them on the repeater output, they are further away. This is called reverse function on some radios, or talk around. By toggling between the repeater output and the input, you create a proximity alarm. Input active, danger close. Input silent but repeater active, they are in the region but not in your backyard. This distinction is the difference between loading your rifle and staying in bed. The complication is spoofing. In a contested environment, savvy actors know you are listening. They might feed false intel into the repeater. They might say, "convoy moving north," while they are actually flanking south. Or they might use honeypot frequencies, open channels left unencrypted on purpose to lure listeners into complacency, or to triangulate you if you get curious and key up to ask a question. Also, remember the terrain. A signal might sound weak not because they are far, but because they are behind a concrete building or a hill. Conversely, a signal might boom in from 50 miles away because of tropospheric ducting, a weather phenomenon that carries radio waves over the horizon. Never trust a single data point. The radio provides a clue, not a fact. Verify with eyes. Verify with patterns. Verify with silence. We have covered a lot of technical ground, but the most important component is the software between your ears. You have to stop looking at the radio as a walkie-talkie. It is not for talking. It is a sensor. It is a Geiger counter for human intent. Just as you wouldn't walk around clicking a Geiger counter to make noise, you don't transmit on a radio. You let the radiation of the world hit the sensor, and you make decisions based on the reading. In the survival hierarchy, information is the base of the pyramid. Food and water come second. You can survive 3 weeks without food. You will not survive 3 minutes in a hostile ambush you didn't see coming. Here is your homework. Tonight, take your Baofeng, disable the PTT, put tape over it if you have to. Turn off the beep, turn down the light, put on your headphones, and just listen. Scan the FRS bands, scan the business bands. Write down what you hear. You will be amazed at the invisible layer of conversation happening around you right now. The tow truck drivers, the security guards, the construction crews. They are the baseline. Learn the sound of normal now, so that when the day comes that the static breaks with something abnormal, a panicked voice, a code word, a foreign language, you will recognize the shift instantly. Become a ghost in the machine. Let everyone else broadcast their position. You are just a receiver. But listening is only half the equation. Because while you are listening to them, you need to understand that the spectrum is getting crowded. There is a new threat emerging in urban survival scenarios that we haven't touched on yet: mesh-tastic and off-grid LoRa networks. Text messaging without cell towers. It sounds like the perfect solution, right? Invisible, low power, encrypted. But here's the thing: a mesh network is only as secure as its dumbest node. If you want to know how a single captured mesh device can unravel your entire group's location history and expose your safe house map to the enemy, you need to be here for the next briefing. We are going to deconstruct the digital breadcrumbs you are leaving behind right now. Secure your spot, check your batteries, and stay silent.